E aí, pessoal, meu nome é Fernando Guerreiro e sejam bem-vindos ao primeiro episódio da nova série Drift. Como pessoas arriscam para criar uma nova forma inovadora de ver o mundo. O Drift é uma série do Vortex, que é uma organização que tem como objetivo conectar e empoderar futuros empreendedores inspirando a mudança. Se você ainda não está inscrito no canal, aproveita para se inscrever. Nós temos vídeos aqui de ecossistemas do mundo inteiro em 3 idiomas: inglês, espanhol e português. Ahora en español. Hola, mi nombre es Fernando Guerreiro y ahora estamos empezando el primer episodio de Drift. Esta es una serie de lives sobre cómo grandes personas arriesgaron-se para crear una nueva realidad de innovación en el mundo. Esta es una iniciativa del Vortex. Vortex es una organización fundada por 7 estudiantes emprendedores de diferentes universidades brasileñas que tiene como objetivo conectar y empoderar los futuros emprendedores inspirando el cambio. Inscreva-se no canal del Vortex para conocer muchos ecosistemas emprendedores y muchas personas muy ricas de todo el mundo. Tendremos episodios en 3 lenguas: inglés, español y portugués. Now in English, hi, my name is Fernando, and now we are starting the first episode of Drifty. Drifty is a project to tell how great people took risk and cleared the way for innovative minds. That is a Vortex project. Vortex is a national entrepreneurship organization founded by 7 young Brazilian entrepreneurs from Southwest colleges that aims to connect and empower university entrepreneurs from across the country to collaborate and create change. In the Vortex channel, we have a lot of episodes about entrepreneur ecosystem in 3 languages: Portuguese, Spanish, and English. Subscribing our channel should show everything about these ecosystems. Ingrid, can you start your presentation, please?
Oh, hello everyone. My name is Ingrid Diaz. I'm a chemical engineering student from University of São Paulo. We are very honored to have Varad Krishna as our guest today. And Varad, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And I'm very certain, Varad, that our audience is a little bit curious about you. So can you please tell yourself a little?
Yeah, thank you so much. First, I would like to thank our Fernando as well as Ingrid for this opportunity to speak with everyone here. I would like to say also that this is a very noble initiative. What you're trying to do is to bring some inspirations from experienced people so that these students that are watching can go on to do also something very innovative in their future, in their lives, in their career, or in their entrepreneurship activities that they're going to plan in the future. So let me tell you about briefly what I have been through. I'm a communications engineer. I heard Ingrid is someone has a background also in engineering. So I would like to say I'm a communications engineer majoring in satellite navigation. And I worked for large corporations initially. Then I went to do entrepreneurship. After gaining some experience in big companies, I decided to do something on my own. And in this journey of entrepreneurship, I've been through several startups that I created myself, but 5 of them are notable. 5 exits I created, including 2 IPOs. And this is something I'll be sharing with you in the course of next few minutes, as Ingrid and Fernando will lead the dialogue. So as I said, this is a very long journey of over 25 years, and I'm trying to cover everything in 1 hour. Thank you.
Varad, you have an amazing journey. And my first question is how startups work in India and how the Indian culture influencing the business and in the startups and in the technology and innovation.
Yes, I would like to tell you today, we need to talk about a little bit about education system. You also come from university background, so you need to know pretty much like in other countries, we have what's called as e-cells. E-cell is, in other words, it's entrepreneurship cells. Then we have entrepreneurship development programs called EDP. Then we also have incubators. So it is like as the student start from ideation and then go through steps and stages to become full-fledged startup, all the help and assistance is provided in the university ecosystems. So this is one important development, over the years. So the government also gives grant for entrepreneurs or students to convert those ideas, say from idea to prototype, which prototype you can demonstrate. And then after you demonstrate, you're able to get further grant to convert that into a minimum viable product. So there is a grant available for that stage. And then from the MVP stage to commercialization and the first customer, there is further grant given by the government. So like this, what is happening is, no investor would like to put money in an early stage startup because it's very risky. And the government is taking away the risk by, investing itself without any equity. So this is a great way of encouraging innovation, because otherwise student would like to go to do on, if you take even Ingrid, she will tell me later that she will also agree with me that if there is no such incentive to do entrepreneurship, what would you do? You will go complete your graduation, then apply for a job, then go on to, if you want to study further, go on to do PhD and so on. So to encourage entrepreneurship, what the government is doing is they're also giving a grant to students so that they can pursue entrepreneurship as a career. So this is another good incentive we see from the government of India. So these, if you ask me, like this, there are many.
Wow.
There is a lot of activities like this going on, and I will answer them. Maybe if I put everything together, I don't want to, overload with knowledge, so much information to people. But I must say, the government is doing everything they can to encourage entrepreneurship. And instead of being employees, so let's say you can go to work for a big company like IBM or Intel, that's, you're becoming an employee. But what if you become an employer? That means you will hire, employees for your company. So that is what, the government is encouraging. They want people to become employers and not employees. So that is one important thing that we see in the Indian ecosystem.
Wow, Varad. Don't worry about overloading us with knowledge. We're actually looking for that. And that's really, really, really great about the government, how it's dealing with the college students and how they're encouraging the new entrepreneurs, right? New startups with grants. And I got very curious about certain types of businesses. You said a lot about prototypes. You said a lot about startups. And we would like to know businesses only found in India that is actually unique about India.
Yeah, very good question again. So if you see in India, right, India is known for a lot of, let's say, natural resources, right? Like if you see also in countries like in South America, you also see agriculture is the main activity, right, in Brazil. So I would say that it's the same here, that you will be able to see similar activities in terms of entrepreneurship and people wanting to go to for example, agriculture, okay, or it's like if you see the natural resources in terms of cultivating fruits or vegetables or grains, etc., is one important ingredient, because it is important that we need to provide food, because only the food can help in feeding so many people, right? We have about 1.3 billion people, and if you were to feed so much people, obviously you need to cultivate a lot of food, and the agriculture plays an important role. And along with that, you can say the other area is manufacturing. Manufacturing sector acts in manufacturing products and various devices, etc., is another area where the contribution comes. So if you say agriculture is one area, the other area is manufacturing. So these are the two main, I can say, in terms of the GDP contribution, right? These are very unique. Other than that, you can say tourism. In the pre-COVID times, we used to have tourism also. India has got a lot of beautiful locations. You might have heard about Taj Mahal, one of the seven wonders of the world. And then we have what's called as medical tourism. Medical tourism as in people coming from, let's say, very expensive nations, where healthcare is very expensive. They come to India. I heard some of my American friends tell me they come for tooth extraction or tooth treatment because it's very expensive in US, and probably that 1/10 of the cost they can do it in India. So I've given you some of those examples. And the fifth one, which is also very important, is the IT industry. So if you see the IT industry, from India is world renowned, and it has been so for many, many years that we've been developing software and also maintaining systems and solutions, worldwide, and even migrating, from one platform to another, etc. So these are all, I can say, very unique to India. And then besides that, you can also say pharmaceuticals, that, something called the APIs, active pharma ingredient, as we call it. That's the one which goes into your drug molecules. If you make a tablet, for example, aspirin or something like that, there are various ingredients that go into making a capsule. Now, such of those APIs are made in India and are exported, worldwide. And even during the COVID, right, there's a lot of research going on the vaccines. And you might be aware that about 8 different companies in India are working on producing vaccines for the COVID. Okay, so I've actually walked you through some of these very unique, let's say, value that we have in India that can be something we can offer to the rest of the world. The world can learn from us. And there's, of course, a lot we need to learn from Brazil and also South America. It's a kind of, I would say, it's something like a collaboration, right? We have some values. There are some values that you have. And if our entrepreneurs and your entrepreneurs can collaborate, it will be a big win-win for everybody. Okay, so this is what I would like to say. Of course, this list is very big, but I think you got a good idea of the key elements, in the form of the GDP, right? So you can go on naming many, but in terms of the contribution to the GDP, these are some of the examples that I can cite.
Varad, do you told for us about the connection of entrepreneurs, the collaboration of them, and how do you see the government can do this collaboration effectively with entrepreneurs, scientists, and government? Because in Brazil, we have a lot of tries of this, but the completely action of these projects don't happen. And I want to know about your journey of 25 years, how this government have changed it and what it did.
So, like in many other countries, government should be an enabler. Government should facilitate. It should not, let's say, get into the way of entrepreneurs, not get into the way of the ecosystem. They should be a facilitator. They should encourage all these collaborations to happen. So if you were to understand some examples, like some great research happens at universities. So the government should encourage more and more students to do research, because when research happens, innovation can happen, because only when that kind of activities are there, encouraged by the professors and let's say various departments that are there, they have to become cross-functional. So if you really see, some of the great ideas in the world have happened not because of one person, right? It is because of many people coming together from example of Ingrid, maybe I would tell you like civil engineering or mechanical engineering, electronics, and energy, so on. So if you bring all the people together, then this multidisciplinary approach, the cross-functional approach, leads to more and more ideas. And so let us say I give you a problem, right, in a room with a different set of people, different set of engineers, and I give the problem. A civil engineer will look at it differently from what a mechanical engineer looks at, and so on. So so then what happens is each one is thinking differently, and they can all contribute to something very unique. Over let's say few iterations, few such meetings of brainstorming, that can lead to something very unique. So these are the kind of activities which the government should do. They have various ministries. So the ministry, let us say, of heavy engineering or something to do with MSME and so on. So the MSME, if you see, is almost like 70+%, right, in every country. So the MSME is the backbone of every country's industry. And so they are the ones who become a feeder to, let's say, whether it is government, they're doing, subcontract jobs for the government, or they're also doing subcontract for the large companies, like the corporations. So then what happens is that the MSME becomes an important ingredient in the whole ecosystem, and everybody should encourage them and allow them to flourish, because if we can bring more and more such companies, into the ecosystem, they'll be able to contribute to the different elements, like I explained to you. So this collaboration can also happen where, let's say, between the university research can be picked up by the company can in turn fund it, and then this can be commercialized and brought to the market. Then this company can market it, with their own wrapper around it. So to just give you an example, I was talking about a pharma ingredient, right? So suppose that pharma ingredient research happens out of a pharmaceutical university, then that can be picked up by a pharmaceutical company. Then they can put a wrapper around it, say ABC company, and then they can market it. And then what happens is the cycle of this innovation is completed. Right from the start of the research, you start with that idea and then go on to complete that cycle and then take it to commercialization. Then everybody benefits, whether it is the university itself, the researcher, as well as the market, that they're addressing. And more importantly, it contributes to the economy in terms of jobs, job creation, and then also revenues that are generated by the company in that particular region, or in that particular geography where they are. So these are the ways the government should facilitate. They should create lot of concessions. I would call it incentives to come and set up their facility there, or set up their factory there, or manufacturing facility, and so on, or even research. So this is also one thing government does, is they give tax rebates. So if you were to do, let's just say, R&D, then you should be able to set off that R&D expense and remove it from your revenues, so that more and more companies will be encouraged to do R&D, and then this is set off as an expense, and it is not to be considered as something which is taxable. And so thereby what happens is the government is encouraging more and more research without any impact on the bottom line of the company. And so then what happens is everybody wants to become innovative, everybody wants to do research. Then we'll be able to create new products and new solutions for the market. That's the role the government should be playing.
Great, Varad. Well, I was very impressed by the way that globalization affects in a positive way around entrepreneurships, especially in India. And actually, we're going to dive a little deeper into your curriculum, all right? We remember that your curriculum says about your education at Harvard Business School. Is that right? Yeah. So we would like to know, which was the most important lesson you studied there, and how did that lesson contribute to your startup in India? We'd love to hear
great.
more about that.
So the one thing is, I will tell you, right, especially during the COVID time, people talk about how are we going to go to universities? How are you going to go to a classroom? Because, you have to maintain social distance. And you also know, right, many schools opened, and within a few days, there were a lot of infections, and then they had to again shut down those schools and universities, right? Because they were dealing with another problem. They were trying to bring students from home to the classroom, but then they had a different problem of infection, right? It is which is far more serious, right? And these infections can last for a few weeks, and thereby it can also spread to the others and so on, right? So you see, one question that comes up every day is about this kind of experiences. Can we do it from home? Can some student, instead of going to a university, can we study from home? Why should I go to a building, right? Why should I go to a campus, right? So these are the kind of questions nowadays being asked by everybody. So I will tell you one important thing. Why you're going to Stanford, why you're going to Harvard. It's not, for example, to experience, some building or, or some scenery or whatever, right? It's not that. It's that classroom setting, right? It is that meeting with your friends who become colleagues later on in your life, and you form that network and that friendship, right? And that will last a lifetime, right? And let us say, we have been talking about business. So these people will become an important connect for you in the future, when you want to do entrepreneurship. So your question, Ingrid, I will say, more than anything else, for me, maybe I learned something in Harvard is about, this education, about innovation, about, entrepreneurship and all that, right? I learned about it. But more importantly, these network that we were able to create among the fellow students in my class, and that experience in the classroom, right? That setting that you get, those are something which is for a lifetime, And so that is how I would like to put it. And since you come from University of São Paulo, USP, this is something that you will also carry in the future, right? I would say that what is USP created for you? You could have studied from home, because today everything is available online. So the answer is very simple. The campus, the experience that you go through is so important in your life, and it creates that kind of, that experience. And it's surreal, surreal meaning it is like something you cannot explain, and you have to go through it. You have to go through those 4 years or 5 years of education. And as I said, these fellow students, the people who study with you, the professors, the other people that you engage with, is something very unique. And that is what is going to help you in the future.
But we are talking a lot now about network and how it influences the business and the learning of things. And I think 100 Open Startups is a good way to create a national and a global network. And then encourage these startups to go to other countries, to go to globalization. How is to create a global startup and an innovation program?
Yeah. Good question again, Fernando. I will put it this way. I would again start with, say, the university setting, right? Look at a student like Ingrid, having an idea. Okay, when you are studying and when you're going through a college course or a program, you suddenly come up with a great idea. Then you want to convert that idea into, an entrepreneurship activity, and so you think this can be converted into a startup, and then you can go to raise funds. After that, you can take it global, right? So this is how, if you see the classical way of doing it is, first you come up with an idea, then what you do, you talk to your friends, you talk to your professor, and then make sure that this idea can work. And then what you do is you find a co-founder. So let us say that you come up with an idea, and then you find your friend or some acquaintance that can become a partner for you. And then you keep on adding 2-3 people, then you're all set. Like, so let's say that you have an ability in creating something, or if you are a programmer, right? So maybe you have the skill of programming, and there should be another guy in a team who should be able to market this, and there should be somebody else who should be able to talk about this. So if you ask me, somebody with the marketing and sales skill, somebody with we're able to put all this together as a coding team expert and so on, like a geek as we call it. So like this, you should have people with different skills, and they should all come together, and then you can build your company, right? Build your startup and take it to next step and so on. And once you've done that, you create a local market so that you have clients who are going to pay for you locally, whether it's in Sao Paulo or in Brazil or in Latin America. So step by step you go. First you start with your own city or a town from where you start, and then build some clients there. From there, you take it to Brazil-wide, then from Brazil-wide, LATAM-wide, then from LATAM-wide, you take it global. So these are the ways, you should start building it, and investors will always be encouraging you to put, let's say, those kind of resources that are required. So, for example, to hire somebody in US or in Canada or in India, they will pay, and then you'll be able to recruit people, open offices there, and then you'll be able to also market whatever the product and solutions. At the end of the day, the investors are looking at what revenues you can generate, because the revenues are the ones which are going to pay for their investment, because they have to get the return back on their investments, right? Because they are answerable to their investors. So if you see every fund, it is not their own money, right? It is somebody's money they're playing with, and so they're answerable to their LPs, so the limited partners, as we call it. And the limited partners are people like you and me who trust a fund and then give up the money to them, and they in turn invest and so on. So this is the way the investment market works. And then it's all about scaling, and once you have established many clients, you start generating revenue, so profitability increases, then you're able to get more and more funding. So some examples are Uber, WeWork, and all that you might have heard. So then you have a huge opportunity, literally billions of dollars, right, are pumped in, and you become a unicorn over the time, right? And so that's how it works. And there's a new term you might be hearing called decacorn. That means you become $10 billion valuation, 10 billion and above. So it's 1 billion, it's unicorn, 10 billion above, it's decacorn. So that's what it is.
Varad, I have one more question for you. You are talking about the co-founders. I want to know what is the importance of the co-founder, because you have 5 exits and 2 IPOs, and how know this person is a good co-founder with you?
Very good question, Fernando. It's so important. It's people cannot, for example, go behind a skin and figure out what he or she is, right? You cannot figure out that, so you go with some recommendation, or you maybe with a friendship with him for some years, he or she, then you think that, okay, this could be a good partner for your company, right? And then you trust this person and go ahead. And then truly, I'm telling you, because in one of my startup, it happened to me, until when there is no money, people are okay, right? There is no money raised, no problem. But the moment money comes, everybody changes. So this is what I want to tell you, that, till the time, you see people are balanced, everything is going fine, everything is okay, there is no money in the company because you're working towards raising it, everybody will be normal, right? So how are you going to judge that someone who is quite calm and who is going to work with you through the journey, he's going to change later? How will you figure out in the beginning? It's very difficult, right? So this is what I would like to tell you, that never get people in a hurry. Try to spend some time, understand his or her thinking, whom you want to hire as a founder along with you, right? So let's say you are the originator of the idea or of that startup, then spend a lot of time, with someone whom you want to bring in as a co-founder. You have to interview, you have to understand deep, you have to go, let's say psychologically, you have to study this person, try to understand also from, other friends, try to get some recommendations, how this person is, and then you take a decision whether this is someone who can fit your role. And I can tell you it is not easy, because I have seen many times people go with good faith, right? And we all go with good faith, but few years later things change and nobody's prepared for that. And so when that happens, you should also have a way to handle it. So it is important to know in the beginning that such things can happen. So you will get very disappointed, and you will also get, let's say, completely disillusioned with the whole journey of the startup when you realize all this later. So if you know in the very beginning that these things can happen, and you better be prepared for it, then you're able to handle it. You're not very disturbed, and these things happen. So that is how it's like a marriage. I can tell you right. That many times husband wife meet, they are good to each other. They don't show who let's say the bridegroom or the bride. They put always the best part of it. They act as if they are good guys, good people, but later things change, right? So it's something like that. So the ugly divorce can happen, when the co-founders have a lot of differences. And it is very similar to the someone choosing someone's spouse, or someone's trying to find a partner, life partner. It's very similar to that, because you do everything you can, but still things go wrong, right, after a few years.
Well, thank you, Varad. I love the way you put marriage into the co-founders, how they are similar in such ways, right? And you talked a lot about how government gives grants and encourages people and college students to make entrepreneurships, to make startups, so India can grow, right? Their GDP can grow. And we believe that culture is a major influence on national businesses and education. So how does the Indian culture play their role? We would love to know more about the Indian culture, because we don't have that touch with the Indian culture as well, just in the movies, and of course is a lot of stereotypical.
Yeah. So the cultural aspect, some of the times it's called as a cultural shock, right? Maybe you are used to a certain culture in South America or in Brazil, but what you see in India is, for example, very different. You know that many children, like right up to the stage of even reaching the university stage, even after they pass out of the universities, they still stay with parents. And this is very. If you go and tell someone in country like US, they get shocked. It's a cultural shock for them that normally, right, after 18, you leave your parents, you leave your family, right, in certain cultures. And so when you say in India, it doesn't happen, because people stay sometimes even after marriage, right? They stay with their parents, they stay with them, and it's a way, it's like I would call it everybody being together, togetherness. And that also is a reason why you will find, it's the marriage, for example. I brought up this example of the marriage, right? So in India, what happens, even today, the marriages are between families. It's not between let's say, the girl and the boy, It's because they see that when the families are backing up, and even if anything were to go wrong, they can correct it. But you see, many, let's say, young people today get married without influence from parents. They choose their own partners, but then they land up in a lot of trouble. But then there is nobody to support them, when trouble happens. So in a situation like ours, both the families come, like the let's say the girl's family as the boy's family come and try to, overcome the problem, And so it's not that this kind of problem doesn't exist in India. It does, but then the families get involved and then try to solve it. So that's what happens. And I think this also plays a very important role in everything, every aspect of our lives. You see that parents try to, guide, and they become mentors to their children and guide them, all the way to choosing what career they should have, what kind of job they should select, which company they should select, and so on. So they play an important role, and that's why I call them as mentor, guide, just rolled into one, everything rolled into one. That's the role parents play here.
Varad, we have a question in the YouTube chat from Guilherme. He says, how do I find good people to support and invest in a startup to start going ahead?
How do I find good people to support? Could you just repeat that question?
So, how do I find good people to support and invest in a startup to start going ahead? I think he says, how find people and how find money to grow the startup.
Okay, so there are two different questions, right? So the first one, I will answer it like this. There is a topic called as effectuation. Since many of you are, students who are planning to be entrepreneurs in the future or startups in the future, you should, study about this topic called effectuation. So effectuation is about study of entrepreneurship. It's a science of entrepreneurship. And this was introduced by an Indian professor named Dr. Saraswati. And I will share with you, Fernando, after this, our session is over, I will share with you a link. There's an event the 100 Open Startups is doing in the month of November. So this is called the WOW, W-H-O-W. You may be aware. WOW is a big innovation event in Sao Paulo. And at that event, there is an interview conducted by one of the members at WOW with Professor Saraswati. And she talks about effectuation, and she's given good examples there. It's about, all that you have. Don't worry about what you don't have, okay? She says, always think about what you have, okay? Don't think about like, oh, I don't have money, I don't have people, I don't have building. Don't worry about that. So coming to your question about how to choose the right kind of people, one is to attend as many events, as many sessions as possible. Because when you visit many such events and sessions, you will get to meet people who also have a mindset which is similar to yours. Not necessary that you will find them always, but the chances are brighter if you visit more events, right? That we all know, right? Because the probability increases if you visit more events. So that is the first thing. That try to network, try to meet with as many people as possible, and try to get their feedback, or if you have some idea, try to give that idea without giving so many details. In a short pitch, try to get feedback from them and what they think about that idea. So then you will also get to judge this person, whether he or she is encouraging you or he or she is discouraging you. Okay, so these are the ways you start. Somebody is encouraging you, it's a good point, a good start. So if somebody says, hey, don't waste your time, don't go pursue these kind of things, go and find a job, then it's a no-no, strict no-no. On the other hand, somebody says, hey, this is a great idea, I want to work with you, okay? Let's join forces, let's join together. So, look for those kind of signals, okay? So that is as far as the co-founder is concerned. Okay? Similar to that, you also meet with few investors, not, let's say, one or two, more and more investors. So when you meet more and more investors, what is happening is you get different feedback from different investors. And they are also very similar to the co-founders, very similar to the spouse. Each one is different. And you have to find the right one who believes in you, who believes in your story, who believes in your, let's say, your growth path that you have envisioned, okay? Then choose that investor, okay, who, similar to the way I explained to you about how you choose a co-founder, who encourages you, who wants to partner with you, gives all the positive signals. the same way look for an investor who also gives you positive signals. Okay, and this is why I told you about this effectuation, because in a short session like this, I cannot cover so many things, but I will share that link with Fernando, and Fernando, please pass it to this gentleman, and you can in turn read about all this. There's a whole lot of information and learning, that you can gather from effectuation. Effectuation is about the science of entrepreneurship. Okay, I would encourage you.
I will put the link in the description.
Yeah.
I would like to go back a little about how the Indian culture functions, and I was very pleased to know your tips about finding co-founders, finding investors, and trying to get your startup to flourish, right? So I also believe that when you said that marriage is more a familiar thing, like two families come together and they talk about if that's the best match they can find. And so I believe that the businesses are kind of familiar, right? To father to son or something like that. And then now that is a culture thing, like growing businesses is a culture thing. I would like to know 3 major keys Indians use to success at their businesses. We would love to hear about it.
Yeah. So I will tell you, it's not that every time it's like a grandfather handing to father, father to son. It's not like that. There are also first generation entrepreneurs. We see this nowadays more and more. Earlier on in the Indian society, if you don't take a job, right, it is considered too risky. So as I mentioned to you, right, it is a marriage. The marriage is between two families. Suppose you become an entrepreneur. I'm talking about say 20 years back. No family who has a girl would like to marry off to a boy who doesn't have a proper job with a big company, because it's considered too risky. But what has happened in the last 10, 20 years is that the families have flourished because the parents are in well-to-do jobs. They have made good wealth for themselves, so there is no pressure on the children to go on learn or go on earn something, right? So what is happening, they are encouraged to do anything. They can become restaurateur. They don't have to go to engineering school or a business school to study. They can become a restaurateur. They can become a musician. They can become a cinematographer. And so you will say these are non-traditional businesses, non-traditional, I would call it as jobs, or or even entrepreneurial activities, right? So they were actually, if you say that my son is doing this, many families will walk away. I'm talking about girls' families will walk away from such a situation. But I see this all changing in the last 20 years, is that because of the wealth and the well-to-do families, there's really no pressure on children to also go and earn. Okay, so they can become what they want. Okay, so to come back to your question, is that everybody decides on their own nowadays, right? But this is, I'm talking about different kinds of strata that exist in the society. So if you can call it as an upper middle class, then you can call it middle class, then lower middle class, and so on, right? And I'm sure this exists everywhere. But your population is around, as I know, 200 to 220 million. Whereas if you see in India, it's about 1.3 to 1.4 billion, right? And so it's almost 6 to 7 times bigger than your population. And you see, there's a lot of divisions that we see. There are people who are very well-to-do, very wealthy. Then there is this, like I mentioned to you, this upper middle class. Then we have the middle class, and so on. So what happens is, depending on where you belong in the society, these things change, right? These values change. And you also know we have almost 600 to 700 million population considered as poor. That means, they are, let's say, don't have what is defined by UN as the proper living standards. They have probably meeting some of those bare minimum necessities, but not to the extent of having high wealth and whatnot, right? So to come back to your question, is you asked me 3 things. That is, making what is India, what is the culture contributing to entrepreneurship, or let us say, is it contributing to development of businesses and so on? Yes, one I can say is that people from the young age are encouraged to do things on their own, right? And so if you see, even at my home, we tell my son, who is now is about 14 years, we tell him, do your things, okay? Don't expect anyone else to do it for you. And like this, it exists in many families in different ways. So sometimes you're also asked to do for others. So then you develop an empathy. That means you put yourself in others' shoes to think what that person is going through, And then other thing we do is to see how the poor people are living. For example, we take them to the blind school for blind during birthdays, and donate food or donate some clothing and whatnot, so that our kids also learn what they have and what others don't have. So so these are very important things, because only when you realize that there are people who don't have many things and you have those things, then you begin to value it. And until then, what happens is you think, okay, this is for granted. My dad is rich, so he will provide me for everything. And so that mindset should not happen. Especially from someone who is growing up, you should have that mindset that I have to create my own thing. And if you have wealth, that's great, you are lucky, but then it doesn't mean that you can splurge it, you can spend it the way you want. So this is the important thing, right? So like I said, to develop empathy, and the first one I mentioned to you is about learning what you have and what others don't have. Okay, that is an important thing. And the third one, which is also very important, is about giving. That is, once you have some things and you realize some things are not there with others, you should have that mindset to give it. So that what happens is, and I know, we all know, right? Nobody is going to take anything. We came without anything into this earth, and we go back also. We're not going to take anything. So that spiritual mindset is important. These are all temporary. Okay, so we need to develop that kind of mindset, temporary mindset, that everything is for a short while. Okay, this journey on the earth is a short while, and be happy, make others happy. So these are the things we want to leave it behind with children.
But Brazil is a largest country like India, and moreover, we have a lot of problems, a lot of social problems, educational problems, but we have a little number of unicorns startups here. And the size of these problems and the number of unicorn startups don't do the same thing. How do you see the growth of startups works in India, and how selling startups works in India too? How your startups exits was done, and by who? And how do you think open 100 startups works in this process?
Okay. See, first I want to tell you one thing. This is the impression that has been created, in the ecosystem, that everybody should become a unicorn to be considered success. I think that is a misnomer. I would call that as something which is very confusing, for upcoming entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs. There's no need to go for unicorn. Okay, I would say look at the model what they have in Israel. Okay, I always tell this. See, they exit their companies at $30-40 million. They don't even look at, if in Israel, there have been only 2 unicorns till now. Even though, they consider the startup nation one of the most promising countries, in the startups in the world is Israel. And there have been only 2 unicorns. Okay, so you must think that there is no need to always have that objective of, okay, I must build a unicorn, no need. Even if you were to create something very innovative and make it a success, create impact for the society and for the market overall, that is good enough. And so to your question about what we have done in 100 Open Startups is a way to build your company, build your startup without investors' money. Okay, so you can actually grow your startup, you can grow your company into the next stages through customer revenues. And this is also very important because if you see in the Silicon Valley, right, that is the mecca, or you can call the capital of the world, right, where a lot of startups come, it's mainly because of the strong investor network that exists there. But if you see within the US itself, whether it is Austin, Boston, New York, these are the other three cities where innovation happens, they don't have the same ecosystem that exists in Silicon Valley. The same amount of investors don't exist there. So if this is a challenge within the US itself, what about countries like Brazil, India, China, or Russia, and South Africa, which are considered the BRICS, the emerging economies, so to say? The challenge is even bigger because we don't have that kind of an innovation ecosystem, say, driven by investors. The ecosystem driven by investors, we don't have. And so it is important to keep in your mind that we need to have an alternate approach to grow the startup. And that is through, like I said, building customers, building companies, building your startup through customer revenues. And you don't have to, like I said, always look at unicorns. Look at 30, 40 million exits. If you can create that success, if you can get 40 million, 50 million exits, that's great. You build your company and somebody buys you out for 40 or 50 million, it's great. Because that's also a good amount of money, good wealth. You created for yourself, your family, and you created financial security. Why everybody's going to job or going to, creating money? It's to create that financial security, right? Everything is about how you can build that kind of for the future, right? For an uncertain future. You do not know what is going to happen in the future. But nobody knows, right? So nobody predicted COVID, as you know, right? So if this is a situation, everyone is looking at how I can earn and keep some money in the bank so that when this earning ability or the capacity to generate income stops, then I have some money in the bank that will help me, right? So that is the reason everybody is trying to earn and create what's called the financial security, so that in your mind you feel safe, you go to bed safe, you go to bed peacefully, and you know that tomorrow you don't have to worry about your food or how to buy fuel and all that, right? You don't have to worry about paying your bills and all that, right? So that is the reason everybody is trying to generate money. So in that case, why you have to create those unicorns? These are all terms created by the investors. And it's mainly because they want to bring unreasonable valuation. And we all know, and since you are students, I want you to study about this, is about these unreasonable valuations that have happened. And many times it has been reset. So if one example we all know about is WeWork. So the WeWork, as you know, is a co-working startup, right? A startup is considered number one in co-working spaces. They went into some skyrocketing valuations. And later what happened is Goldman Sachs and some of those big names, they kind of reset the valuation by half, by 50%. So the investors, in their greed, were bumping up the value, but the analysts, the financial analysts, they didn't agree to that. So they reset that, and that is what has happened, globally. So that is why I'm saying this word unicorn is all due to the greed of investors. They want to bring more and more money, more and more numbers. I would call them a little bit unreasonable. And it is not something that is going to sustain in the long run. And it is just a fad. It's just for for some time to come, it will exist. After that, it won't be there. And we have seen this every few years, things change. And you will also see after COVID, this term slowly fading away. Nobody will talk about unicorns.
So firstly, I would like to tell to the audience about, you mentioned Israel being the #1 startups companies, all right? And we have that episode here in Vortex International, so don't forget to check it out. For you who are already watching it or just tuning in, please go and watch it. Unfortunately, it's only in Portuguese, but I'm glad you like it. And now, Varad, this is more of curiosity when you were reading your curriculum. You said you work in cleantechs, right? And we'd like to know what is a cleantech, especially, and what does it do to affect internationally?
Okay. So you know that all over the world today there is so much Mother Nature, has been affected, right? There is climate change. There is pollution. It has led to a lot of disease like asthma, breathing problems. So there is a city you may be knowing in India called Delhi. So you should come to Delhi during the months of Jan, Feb, and March. There is a huge amount of pollution, that you can't even see, say about a meter away, what is happening, right? And there are a lot of accidents that happen. You know why? It's because there are farmers, who are, let's say, about 100 kilometers away from Delhi, who burn, this hay, or this, what you call, after you remove the food grains, you're left with the hay, right? And so they don't have a space to dispose it in a green way or in an efficient way. So what they do is they burn it, okay? And imagine it's not few kilos, right? It's tons and tons of such, those kind of, like, after these grains are removed, the hay is really, creating such a huge amount of pollution, and it becomes a breathing problem. And I will tell you, a lot of people moved away from this city called Delhi to different locations across India, mainly because they were having breathing problems, right? And it is not very different in Sao Paulo. I do know there are a lot of traffic jams during the pre-COVID times. So in fact, I had a friend, is my friend, from Sao Paulo. So he told me that nobody can beat the traffic jams in Sao Paulo. So we were driving in Bangalore. So I said, okay, you come to me tomorrow. I will take you on a ride. Then you tell me what happens. Then he said, oh, I'm sorry, Bangalore wins because, we have a lot more cars, a lot more automobiles on the road than what you have in Sao Paulo because of the population, right? And also the traffic jams are much longer, and you can say the roads being very wide, so almost 6 lanes. All the 6 lanes are blocked. It's chock-a-block, and so it's all finally it's all the pollution, right? So the question is, why are we creating all this? Why are we not looking at ways of efficiently, burning fuel so that it doesn't leave behind any residue, into the air? And if you see many years back, right, say before the automobile was invented, people used to use other forms of transportation, right? Maybe some of them used to walk, right? And some of them used to go on horses, carriage, and all that. So they never created any pollution, right? So I was just naming one, which is the automobile. We all know. Similar to that, you see the factory manufacturing that happens, etc. They also emit a lot of chemicals in the air. So at the end of the day, what is happening is the whole air that we breathe is contaminated, and we are supposed to breathe in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. But what is happening, along with oxygen, we are, also inhaling a lot of chemicals into the body, and that is leading to a lot of disease. And why we have to create all that? Because then, see, ultimately it is the government which has to solve this. So let's say you first create more and more licenses for automobiles. The government should say no. Only this many vehicles will be sold in Sao Paulo, this many vehicles in Bangalore. They should put restrictions. So when they do that, you obviously will restrict the amount of vehicles that are running on the road, and thereby the pollution also is reduced. But you see now what has happened in the greed of issuing licenses, and in their say to increase the amount of vehicles on the road because the public transportation is not good. So everybody takes motorbikes, everybody takes the cars. So if you see in some homes there are as many as 5 cars, then some motorbikes and so on. So what is happening? Every family member has got a vehicle, and they're on their own because the public transport system is not good. So the first step is, can the government do something about making the public transportation very efficient so that nobody takes their own private vehicles onto the road? So if you can take those kind of measures or those kind of steps, what happens is you're reducing the number of vehicles or the people who are creating pollution, you're reducing them, right? So that is where it starts. On the other hand, you have gone on issuing licenses more and more people are on the road, then it has created another problem, which is, like I said, the asthma, right? The breathing problems. And for that, they have to again pay for healthcare, right? The government has to fix this problem again, right? So on the one hand, you encourage all these manufacturing, chemical production, and all those pollutants, in the air, and even the water. You see, water is heavily contaminated. That is because you bring those industry, the industry, like if without naming, because we are in a public forum, some of the well-known drinks, some beverages, right? What they do is they take away all the natural water, and then they put out chemicals, and those chemicals go into the soil very deep, and forever the soil is acidic. Forever the soil nature is changed. So you're creating so much disturbances to the nature that it is not going to go away in the next few generations. And so that is important why we have to talk about clean tech, is because all these issues that I talked about, we have to find a solution, we have to fix it. And the fixing is possible by switching from fossil fuels, right? The fossil fuels are gasoline, diesel, and all that. You'd replace it with other forms of fuel so that the people movement can continue. And that is why we all know these electric vehicles, right? So many startups have come up in that space. And you also see a lot of automobiles, that are fully electric. And even trucks are there today, right? Trucks are there which are fully electric. So these are some of the examples of how the startups and the innovation that is happening is trying to address those issues on pollution or the contamination to the nature. Similarly, if you see agriculture, and I talked about chemical industry, I talked about pharma industry, all those industries, there is a lot of contamination, a lot of effluents that come up, and by bringing about innovation to address those, so that, let's say, the chemicals that are released, before they're released into the air, they have to be filtered. So when you filter it, they take away all these contaminants or the chemicals, you take it away and release only the pure air. Pure air as in air that is like only oxygen, and let's say something which is found in the atmosphere. All the chemicals related, the contaminants should be removed, but be filtered, and they should find a way to recycle it, to put it back into, whatever they're producing, they should put it back into that. So this is what we call, we're talking about the circular economy. You're talking about today's sustainability, the UN goals and all that, right? Because plastic is one such what do you call it? It's the biggest contributor, right? If you go into oceans, you go into beaches. In fact, you see this, the one I'm wearing. So this is a place called Andamans. Okay, it is a coincidence. I'm just wearing this. I have cleaned the beach in Asia's biggest beach. Okay, so that's what this T-shirt says. Okay, you can read it, I suppose. And so this is a good example. So when I went to the beach, it's supposed to be the purest and the cleanest beach in Asia. And you won't believe, on the shore, I found a lot of plastic, this toothbrush, the caps of bottles. Then I found, the fishing nets, so much. And, just by picking it, I always, about an hour, I was able to bag almost this big a bag. I was able to get, all those, rubbish. And like I said, scattered all over the beach. It was, in fact, inside the sand, and sometimes you see some of them, just coming out of the sand. So you just pick it up and then put it in your bag. So I'm just telling you this. Imagine the plight of other beaches which are not as clean. This is one thing I wanted to bring it up by saying these are the challenges, the country like India is facing, and of course all over the world. There are so much, pollution and effluents that are happening. Effluents are being pumped into the even drinking water resources, and that is contaminating, and it goes into the soil, and then it comes back to you as food. So the chemicals you get to consume when you eat your vegetable or your fruit, it comes through that into your body, and then it affects your system.
Thank you for your answer, Varad. I think clean tech is something so important for whole the world. And I want to thank you to talk with us, to bring this knowledge, to bring these tips. And do you say something, Ingrid?
Yeah,
do you say something too?
Yeah, Ingrid, please go ahead, Ingrid.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to thank all the audience for tuning in, and thank you again, Varad, for accepting our invitation. Thank you for expressing your environmental awareness, because it's really important nowadays, and to see how startups can change how the environment is dealing and how we can make startups more innovative with your tips and the way you said you can find co-founders and investors. Thank you so much about that. For the audience, if you like about startups, if you like to know about more entrepreneurship ecosystems, please go to our YouTube channel. You can find a lot of those videos there. So thank you again, Varad.
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you, Ingrid, and also the audience. So like I said, in the beginning, this is one of the first. And if you want to do more sessions, I'm happy to do, for example, one on effectuation, or anything to do with fundraising, or how to convert an idea to prototype or into MVP. MVP means minimum viable product, and so on. So I'm happy to do such sessions for you, so that these things don't sound Greek and Latin. So many people talk about MVP, then don't know what is MVP. But when you have gone through a session like that, then oh yeah, MVP, yes, I know what it is. So it is important that if you have decided to be an entrepreneur, you should know those terms being used nowadays. And I'm also noticing in the days ahead, the trend is more and more students are going into entrepreneurship globally. And I don't think you guys are going to be different. You cannot stay away from the trend. So I presume that you also become, let's say some of these will touch you, and then you also want to feel the wave, right? And so you want to be part of that wave. So all the very best. And you have Fernando and Ingrid, and I'm sure there are others in the ecosystem who are going to help you. And I'm here always, right? If you have any challenge, or if you have any doubts in your mind, please feel free to write to Fernando. And Fernando, please write back to me, and I'm happy to help you guys. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Bye.